Hi guys. So we're gonna do another day of slope-intercept form, but we are gonna introduce one more equation called standard form. Um, and we're just gonna focus today on how to go from standard form to slope-intercept form. Okay, so quick review. Slope-intercept form, like we talked about yesterday, is y equals mx plus b. Okay, and the m stood for the slope, and the b was the y-intercept. You guys did really well with that. So now we're gonna move on and take it a step further. So standard form is something new. Okay, so the standard form of an equation is actually ax plus by equals c. All right, and the a and the b and the c are all just coefficients or numbers, okay? And we're gonna learn today how to go from an equation in standard form and convert it into slope-intercept, all right? So before we do that, we're just gonna go through and do a couple practice warm-up examples of what we worked on yesterday. All right, so for 3, 4, and 5, I gave you the slope, I gave you the y-intercept, and we're just gonna work on writing an equation in slope-intercept form. Okay, so again, y equals mx plus b. I'm going to plug in my slope. I'm going to plug in my y-intercept. So if I do that, my equation becomes y equals 1/3 x minus 1. All right. Number 4, okay, I'm going to plug in my slope, my y-intercept of 0 here. So y equals -2/5x. Okay, now technically it would be plus 0, but we really don't have to write this plus 0. So you could just leave it as y equals -2/5x. And that's technically correct. If you do write the plus 0, that's fine too. Points won't be taken off, but you can just write -2/5x. And then number 5, my slope is -1, so I have -1x. Y-intercept is 4 plus 4. Okay, and all 3 of these equations are in slope-intercept form. Okay, now the rest of the problems, we're going to start to work with converting it from standard to slope-intercept. Okay, so notice how 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11 are all in standard form. And we said that standard form was ax plus by equals c. So our x term and our y term are both on the left side of that equal sign. All right, so if you look at 6 specifically, okay, it's in ax plus by equals c form. We want to transfer that to slope-intercept. So I'm going to write in red over here what we want it to look like. So to do that, okay, notice how in slope-intercept our y is by itself. So we want to manipulate these equations that were given to get y by itself. All right, so let's work on that in number 6. Again, I'm just going to highlight it here. This y here is what we want to get by itself. So the first thing I need to focus on is this x term out in front here. I don't want that over here. I don't want it on the left side of my equal sign. I want to put it in front of that 6, right? Because in y equals mx plus b, I want my x term in front of my y-intercept, which is just our coefficient here. So to bring something to the other side of the equal sign, we need to do the opposite of what we're given. So since it's positive 6x, I'm going to subtract it from both sides of my equation. All right, it'll cancel out on the left-hand side. I'm just left with 3y. Now, I can't combine my 6 and my -6x, right? They're not like terms. I can't combine a number with a term that has an x. So I'm going to stick this -6x here, all right? And I'm going to place it in front of the 6 because for slope-intercept form, I want the x term first. So I'm just going to put it in front of that 6 and then keep my positive 6 out to the right. So that becomes -6x plus 6. Okay, but we're not completely done because my y isn't by itself yet. So notice there's a 3 hanging out in front of that y that we want to get rid of. So like I talked about with the 6x, we want to do the opposite operation that we see. So right now the 3 and the y are attached by multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I want to divide both sides of my equation by 3. Now, when I do that, I want to make sure I divide everything on the right side of my equation by 3. That includes the x term, and it includes the coefficient. So on the left side, my 3's cancel, and I'm just left with y equals, now I want to simplify each term. Okay, so if I look at this first term, I want to simplify the numbers out in front. So negative 6 over 3 gives me negative 2x. And then in the second term, 6 divided by 3 is positive 2. So notice now that my final equation is in slope-intercept form, mx plus b. All right? I know it seems like a lot of work, okay, but the more that we practice with it, the easier it's going to get. All right, so let's try number 7 together. Again, I want to get this y, and I'm just going to highlight it for you, by itself. So the first thing I have to do is this x term out in front. I want to bring that to the other side and put it in front of my 4. So since it's positive, I'm going to subtract it from both sides. It's going to cancel out on the left. I'm just left with 2y. All right. Now, like I said in number 6, okay, I can't combine my 4 with an x. They're not like terms. So I'm going to take that negative x and place it in front of the 4. So that becomes negative x plus 4. Now I'm not completely done yet. All right, this 2 out in front here, we want to get rid of. So 2y, the 2 is attached to the y with multiplication. In order to undo multiplication, we want to divide. So we're going to divide both sides of my equation by 2. Now don't forget, when I do that, I want to divide both parts of the right side, so the negative x and the 4 by 2. So now I'm left with y on the left side. I'm just going to write it over here to the right. Y equals, now, even though it's not written, we can assume that the negative x has a negative 1 out in front. All right, so I'm just going to leave it as negative 1/2 x. Okay. We prefer you not to change the slope to decimals. If you have 1 divided by 2, it will give you 0.5, but I'd rather you write it as a half and leave it as a fraction. And then I have 4 divided by 2, which just gives me 2. So my final answer is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. And notice, if I write it right above it, you can see how that is now in slope-intercept form of y equals mx plus b. All right, let's try a couple more together, and then I'm actually going to have you guys do a few on your own like we did yesterday. So let's take a look at number 8. All right, so I want to get this y by itself. First thing I want to do is take care of that x term. So the opposite would be to subtract it because that x is positive. So I'm going to subtract my x from both sides, which now I'm left with y equals, again, I cannot combine the negative 3 and the negative x. I simply want to put the negative x out in front of the 3 and push the 3 to the side. Now, the 3 is negative here, so I want to make sure that it's minus 3. Okay? Now, our two previous examples, we had a number out here in front of y that we had to divide by. In this case, we don't. So right now, it is already in slope-intercept form. So my final answer is y equals negative x minus 3. All right, let's try number 9. Okay, so again, it's currently in standard form. We want to get it into slope-intercept form. So I want to get this y by itself. And the first thing I want to do is this x term out in front. So notice how my x term is negative now. So in order to bring that to the other side, I want to add it. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides. When I do that, I'm left with 3y equals 2x minus 6. Again, it's a negative 6, so just make sure you bring that negative sign down when you rewrite it. All right, and now we do have a number out here in front of the y, so I want to make sure that I divide everything in my equation by 3, which then leaves me with y is equal to 2/3 x minus 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Okay, and notice how I'm leaving my slope as a fraction. Okay, similar to the example number 7. If it doesn't divide evenly, all right, you want to leave it as a fraction. We don't really want to see decimals in front for the slope. Okay, leave that in fraction form. All right, so on your own right now, all right, you guys are going to just try 10 and 11. All right, we're not going to worry about 12. We're not going to worry about 13. I just want you to try 10 and 11. All right, there's actually only 3 more example problems here in the notes that we're going to do. All right, it's a nice, short, easy day. Okay, the last part of this is now writing an equation in slope-intercept form. All right, so again, y equals mx plus b. When you're just given 2 points. So I'm given the point 0, 3, and I'm given the point 2, 5. And I want to plug that in or create an equation in slope-intercept form that uses those 2 points, okay? So the first thing that we need, remember how we talked about the 2 most important parts of slope-intercept are my m and my b? All right, so if we're given 2 points, the first thing we want to do is find the slope. Okay, and this goes back to a couple days ago, all right, but finding slope from 2 points, you could choose to use the formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I like to use the xy table, so to find the slope, I'm going to make a little xy table. I have the point 0, 3, and I have the point 2, 5. And I'm just going to find my y, change in y, and my change in x. All right, so my change in y is plus 2. My change in x is also plus 2. So my slope, change in y over change in x, is 2 over 2, which gives me 1. All right, so I have the first part that I need. Okay, I have my m. Now I need to find my b. So in this problem, we're actually pretty lucky. We know that our y-intercept is always where x is equal to 0. So if you look at the point we're given, our x is 0. So we can assume that this 3 is our y-intercept. All right, so my b, or the second piece of information that I need, is 3. So I'm going to take those 2 elements, plug them into slope-intercept for a final answer of y equals 1x plus 3. All right. So again, first thing I needed to do over here is find my slope. Okay, once I find my slope, I can plug that into my equation. All right, and then I need to find the b. Now, the b value isn't always going to be given to us. So we got a little bit lucky in this first example because they gave us where x is equal to 0. All right, so we could just take that 3 and input it into our equation. However, if we scroll down to this next problem, notice how my points here, -7, -3, and -12, 5, I don't have a value where x is equal to 0. So that's going to make us do an additional step. All right, and we'll talk about that as we go. So again, a line in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. We need to find our m, we need to find our b. So first things first, find the slope. I'm going to make my XY table.